Hello, Free Rotation, and welcome to this week's episode of Ghost Hunting and What Not to Do. Just kidding. Although we probably did have a lot of what not to do, we went back out to the graveyard and were able to catch a couple of sweet EVPs. Not Chris, though. His recorder was completely empty, except the lulling sounds of a sudden, 30-second rain shower. Still not sure what that was. Or do we know? Misty can't keep it in his pants. Just kidding, it was just a pee. We went back out to the graveyard we'd been to before, and where we had captured a couple of very, very clear EVPs, even in the middle of a torrential downpour. Last time we went, though, we didn't get as much, but there was a particular spot of the graveyard where all of these EVPs are recorded that I'm going to play for you in this episode. I'm going to play them a couple of times in a row so you can really get a good sense of them. And if you hear something that we didn't, please let us know. Now, I'm not going to log the full audios here because it's over 3 hours worth from all three recorders. But I did listen to each of these instances on all three recorders. I chose the better of the two, but there is backing evidence. And except for Chris's, nothing was recorded on his. It was actually, if you need white noise to go to sleep too, that's the one you want to get. First of all, though, I would like to play for you a cacophony of mine and Dan's reactions throughout the night. I hope you enjoy this as much as we did. Headphone warning.
Are you?
Alright, so the very first second is Andy screaming. Hey, it's getting quiet. Whoa! It just... it stopped. I'm done.
Huh?
Oh, God. There was literally nothing, but...
It's all in your mind.
I had, fear poops the entire way over here. It was like... Now, I think Dan and I are going to be the ones to survive in the event something truly had happened because, A, we were vocal, and B, we were, fuck this shit, I'm out. But yeah, this is what everyone had to deal with for the, a good bit of the night. I realized I'm way more hyper than I thought, and everyone else seems to be way more calm except Dan, so this is why you understand Dan and I are platonic life mates. We get each other on a deep, fearful level. Anyways, moving on to what you really want to hear. So, at this graveyard, in the past, we had caught a lot of EVPs of a woman singing and humming, and this time was no different. We actually captured on multiple recorders the same thing, so I'm going to play those now for you as well. This first clip is at the same time Dan is using the spirit box to communicate. It didn't come through the spirit box, you can hear it in the background. The next two clips are a bit more clearer, where you can hear the humming followed by a clip of singing. The humming seems more of a soprano, and the singing itself seems more of a deeper alto. Not sure if it's the same voice. You be the judge. I can verify that no one was singing in the field. Chris hummed a couple of snatches of a song at the beginning, but these, he wasn't humming this. It was very clearly a female voice, and he wasn't humming what sounds to me like religious tunes. So it seems as if this woman followed us. Becky had stated that there were multiple times that night where a couple of people had seen a dark-haired woman following me. And there was once or twice where I thought someone was standing on my right and even turned to speak to the person. I thought it was Casey, and she would end up being on my left, or, nobody would be there at all. And you don't think too much about it because there's trees and tombstones and stuff, but it was very unusual. But there were a couple of times where we all sensed something and there was an EVP that accompanied it. So I'm going to play those clips now. In this next clip, it started getting really cold where I was standing. So I commented that the temperature was dropping. It was getting cold. At the same time, in the middle of me saying this, you can hear a woman speaking. Can't you feel it? It's getting a lot colder. Can't you feel it? It's getting a lot colder. What do you think she said right there? So in the middle of me saying that I felt the temperature dropping, I know what I think she said there, but I would like to hear what you guys think she said. In the next couple of clips, I'm going to play the same woman. It sounds to me like the exact same voice, talking over us, whispering, not really so much humming, but just making noises. And some of these you really have to listen hard, so just tell me what you guys think.
I think it was the branch.
You can go around this tree, it'll be fine.
I think it was the branch.
You can go around this tree, it'll be fine.
Ever since we walked over here.
Did you do something to the machine? Did you do something to the machine? What's really unusual to me in the last clip I played is it sounds like she answered me in French. When I asked, did you do something to the machine? It sounds to me like she says, oui, or oui, which really was an emphasis on the actual pronunciation of oui. So I would like to go back out to the graveyard and see if I can find any French people and research that, because it was just a really unusual response. In the next couple of clips, it gets a little scarier to me. There are direct responses and more otherworldly sounds, as well as animalistic growls and groans in responses to some of our questions. But we're going to take these one at a time so we can really focus on them. In the next one, from Dan's recorder, we have him asking, is anyone out here? And there was a response, a very loud response, but none of us heard it. And as you can hear on the recorders, it's not such a big area that we are out of earshot of one another. So if this had been as loud as it sounds like, we would have definitely heard it. Interestingly enough, none of the other recorders picked up that scream. I'm not sure if she's screaming for help or just, screaming, but it is important to note in the area of the graveyard Dan was in when he picked up these EVPs, the church had burned down. It was a place where the first church was. And they had done a lot of, Chris is going to get so mad at me for not remembering the terminology, but basically where they x-ray the ground and look under it. And they had discovered where the original church sat and a couple of original graves. But the debris from the church had been moved and buried in the field at the further end. And it is interesting because in this field, in our first session out here at the cemetery, there was an EVP that said, "Get them off of my field." So it's just an interesting little correlation there. Another interesting thing to note is that it appeared that it was only Dan who received these more visceral reactions in EVPs. They seemed a little more violent, but he was also the one who spent the most time in the darkest part over by where the original church burned down. So in this next one, we have more of an animalistic answer to a question where he asked for a sign.
Any kind of sign will be nice. Any kind of sign will be nice.
I started off the way I did in the episode showing mine and Dan's fear reactions because, one, it's freaking hilarious, but two, it really puts in perspective that if Dan and I had actually heard this stuff beside us, we wouldn't have been there. I mean, they would have just had to find their own way home because we both would have been, flashing already in our beds, cowering while they were still looking for keys. I really wanted to show how Dan and I responded to absolutely nothing, to really point out that these EVPs aren't always visible to the ear. You know what, I'm leaving that in. They're not always audible to the ear, but you do get a sense of something, and don't second guess your instincts when you feel something, because one thing I hope to show through sharing these EVPs is that a lot of times we thought we felt something, like where I felt a cold, and Casey said, it's been a while, like I feel something right here, and sure enough, there it was. In this next clip, what we have is a direct response to a question Becky asks. I was standing there with Becky, and it was just after I thought I had seen someone standing to my right, and I was really confused because it was plain as day to me out of my peripheral vision that someone was standing there, and I had made a comment that, wow, I really feel like somebody was here, except, not so calm as I'm portraying it right now, because I don't know if it's obvious, but there's really no calm around me on a ghost hunting night. But it responded, and it was just really an unusual response, and yeah, you'll see.
Is anybody near Angie? Is anybody near Angie?
The last two clips I would like to share, while they're not necessarily EVPs, they do capture two unusual noises. One is an equipment glitch in the recorder Becky was holding. And while equipment glitches, these are recorders, and it's an unusual glitch because it sounds like a record scratching. And if you've ever used these recorders and know anything about them, they really don't make this noise. The second is a strange noise. It almost sounds like a dog barking, but there were no dogs barking on any of the other recorders, and we don't remember hearing dogs barking that night. That's not to say this wasn't, and the recorder picked up something we couldn't hear. And that's why I'm not classifying these two as EVPs, but they're just incredibly unusual.
Anybody out here who'd like to speak to us? Anybody out here who'd like to speak to us?
I suppose in that last clip, you can hear a dog barking. It's the sound just before that I feel the actual dog is responding to the whoo noise, or I can't make it. To me, it reminds me of like a Bigfoot screech, but everything reminds me of Bigfoot screech. So, I mean, really, and I'm not a good one to ask because it's always a Bigfoot or a ghost. One thing I'd like to talk about is, it seems to me that, certain ghosts are attracted to certain energy. Dan and I were both born in the month of May, and I feel like we have a certain chaotic nature that appears to attract stuff. Casey can see stuff, and Becky is good at identifying spots, but people like Becky and Chris seem to be so grounded and logical that it doesn't seem like things are drawn to them, per se. I think you have to genuinely be open and have a belief to have these things, I don't want to say happen to you, but to be able to hear the EVPs and see things. Now, I don't want to see anything, although it's, the little ghost girl we brought home is so commonplace that, every morning she turns the TV on and flickers lights, and I say good morning to her. It's pretty much all she does. I mean, there's other stuff like doors opening and closing, and it's when multiple people are here. It happens in the day, it happens at night. I've been streaming or playing a game with, wires, Becky, Chris, and Alex, and suddenly, there was somebody come across my microphone saying hello. It's sometimes it's a bit scary, but a lot of times it's pretty commonplace. But if you don't want to hear or see things, I would suggest not opening the doorway. Listening to these things I don't feel does that, but who really knows, to be honest. And as you can hear, some of these things are really odd. It sounds, the woman humming and singing, but then she's talking and giggling, like, what is she saying? Now, I don't think we've really shared these before. I did some live stream editing for the previous ghost hunt we did here at the cemetery. I'm gonna play these clips. Now, these were not part of this last paranormal investigation. It was the one prior to this during the rainstorm. So you're gonna hear a lot of rain sound. It's gonna be a lot different from the sounds you just heard. But these EVPs are so clear, and we feel like it's because of the rain that we were able to get such clear EVPs. Right off the bat, when we got there last time, we were greeted with an unusual laugh. I'm going to play that. This was a really weird night because we could feel this stuff happening, but we really couldn't hear because of the downpour of rain. It was actually a really bad storm here that came up while we were heading towards the graveyard, and there were actually tornadoes that happened to county over. The second one we got was a child, and this one's weird. One thing to keep in mind is I have run that through several layers of noise reduction, so that's as clear as I could get that. And to me, it sounds like it says something like it died out here. But let me know what you think. This next clip is probably the one that hits hardest with me. I mean, it was raining and I had an umbrella and I was struggling with a GoPro and the recorder and holding the backpack and a light. Like it genuinely was a struggle that night. And I kept feeling something tug my hair in my shirt, and I just assumed at first that it was one of these pieces of equipment grabbing hold of me. And then I got so frustrated because something really grabbed the hood of my jacket and tugged backwards, and I actually almost dropped all of my stuff. I did drop my light. So I told it to leave me alone, and it responded. That's really unusual because up until I just put that clip on Audacity and cleaned it up, I'd never heard that it made a lot of noise before it said no, I won't. So it's just really, really weird to me because I just never heard it before, and hearing that it said something like, oh no, I won't, is really gives me the creeps knowing that was right beside me. Okay, hearkening back to the last paranormal investigation we did with the woman singing and humming, we have the same voice, which is really, really odd. And you'll hear her singing and crying. And this is a rather long clip, so I'm only going to play it through once. But you can hear her humming, crying, and singing. And at the very end, she sings "Rest in Peace." It's wild to me how that singing was so clear. And we had been suspicious. We thought we could hear singing and humming, like with our naked ears. And when we were over there, there was just such a feeling of sadness. It was the area of the graveyard where all the babies and children had been buried. And we just felt like there was a woman there that watched over them. But listening to that clip and hearing how she's crying all the way through it is just heartbreaking. Unlike the next couple of clips I have for you. After this, we're pretty sure the Reverend, he doesn't come through as clearly in his EVPs, but we feel like he was definitely saying stuff. And if you listen closely, you can hear this in the EVP sound. This sounds more like your typical EVP that you get. Not all EVPs are anywhere near as clear as the ones I've played for you. There's no telling what we've missed just because I'm not really sure what to listen for, but these, even though they're different, they're very, very clear. Remember when I told you that the Reverend had said, "Get them off of my field"? Well, here's that clip. I just want to let you listeners know that this is the first time I've run these clips through Audacity and used noise reduction to filter out the rain sounds. I have never heard the hiss at the beginning of that clip, and that is so clear, "Get them off of my field," that every hair on my arm is standing up because it was just so crazy. Now in this next clip, there's a bit of a backstory. So right after we'd heard the singing, and we didn't hear the "Get them off of my field," but we very, very clearly felt we needed to leave immediately. We all felt it. We were all in agreement. We needed to go. We found out later that Bobby and his friends were using antagonistic tactics to get the ghost's attention, basically cussing, which we had agreed not to do, being that it was a graveyard, and it's a family graveyard of one of our members, so we didn't want to come with that energy, but that is the energy presented, so we were met with the same energy. It makes sense. If you're disrespectful, they're not going to respect you. However, we didn't know all this at the time, so we were like, we need to go. They clearly don't want us here. So everyone else, vamooshed. I was left to get, remember I told you earlier, I had all the freaking equipment. And I had also, earlier that night, had gone to a store with Chris and gotten a bag of drinks for everyone. So I wanted to make sure we didn't leave any trash or anything. So I'm going along the cemetery line and just making sure we didn't leave any bottles and getting the bag. As I got to the cemetery gate, I was the last one there. Everyone else had moved out and they were waiting for me by the cars. Well, except for one girl, Amber, who was Casey's friend. She was maybe about 10 steps off. So I didn't hear with my naked ear any of the next two things shouted at me, but I could definitely feel it. So you'll hear me telling them, "I'm sorry, I'm leaving." But you'll hear a woman shout over me, "Leave." And then you'll hear another voice tell me, "Get out of here." I'm sure what some of you are thinking is that, there was a group of us. We could have had anybody in the microphone saying stuff. And, I could just be making up stuff that I was the last one there. Except we have this all on video. And we live streamed it. So, even in the rain, we were live streaming as much as we could. But it was captured on the GoPro. I had a GoPro on my chest, a GoPro on my head. Becky had a GoPro, and we all had recorders. So it's just our way of making sure that, we have some checks and balances. If you want to see the video, we can upload it to YouTube, but since it is unedited and a pain in the butt, we'll only do it upon request, but we will if you ask. Now, the last one, I have no idea what the EVP is saying. And I actually don't know what that bang just was. Okay, my door just opened and closed itself, but like I said, I have ghosts in the house. I'm so used to it now. But yeah, so we get out of the, graveyard. I walk up to where Amber is standing waiting on me, and we're walking towards where Casey is up by the cars. And there was a huge gust of wind that almost knocked us over, but when we looked up at Casey, she was fine. Remember I told you there were some pretty bad storms? Well, Casey said it looked to her like something had pushed us, and she said that something had been hurting her all night. So she asks the question, and she receives a response. However, I'm not really sure what the response is. Tell me what you think.
Really don't want us there. Were you hurting my arm? Was that you? Now that I'm not over there? Really don't want us there. Were you hurting my arm? Was that you? Now that I'm not over there?
Like, I don't know about y'all, but that doesn't sound like anything we've heard before. It doesn't sound like the kid, the man, the woman who hums. Remember, this was outside of the graveyard gates, in this field going towards the cars, and it was just such a different energy. Like, even playing that and editing that, it gave me just chills. I'm having a visceral reaction to it. Like, I shouldn't listen to that voice again. I have absolutely no idea what it's saying, but even after the, series of noise reductions I put it through, I still can't understand it. So hit us up in the comments and let us know what you think, because, a lot of these, after listening to it, I could kind of figure it out. But that one, just not sure. Well, I do appreciate you guys joining me in this journey of investigating our paranormal investigations. I told Becky I would name this episode Fear Poots, but I probably won't. That is something I would have liked to have kept forever between friends, but hey, we're all friends, right? I mean, you listen to us every week. You got to care about us a little bit. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and leave us a comment. Seriously, we really want your feedback. Let us know what you hear. Thanks, everybody. Bye.